You will receive a body. You will learn lessons. There are no mistakes, only lessons. A lesson will be repeated until it is learned. I am one frickin' slow learner. Just want to say, learning lessons does not end. There is no better than here. Others are merely mirrors of you. That's so true. What you make of life is up to you. Life is exactly what you think it is. Okay, that's another one. Okay. Your answer lies inside of you. Got it? You will forget all this. But then number 12, last one, you can remember it whenever you want.
That's the Sanskrit, like, life instructions, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I wish they still taught that to people on the majority level. You know, at the end of the day, though, it's a belief system, and every belief system is correct.
Right.
It depends on what you choose to participate in.
I totally believe it. It's just, I have a hard time, like, wrapping my head, like, okay, if we forget everything, but yet it can be pulled up when we want it. So is this, we forget from past lives, but we can pull it up later?
I think it's all of the above. But there's a certain point where you remember it. If you were to remember everything, then the game is over. And then there's like a reset, because then what's the point of this human existence if you remember everything? I don't even know if the human body is capable of housing everything. Now, I know our brains are capable of holding far more than we actually use. So maybe the human body is capable of, I don't know. I don't know that our human body is even capable of holding all knowledge about everything. So if you reach that point, like, you're not human anymore. So the game is over. So I don't feel like I would personally ever strive to remember everything, but I know from personal experience that when things are when it's 2:22 here, that's funny. I guess we're in the same time zone, so.
We are.
When people have skills that come naturally to them, it's actually them remembering skills that they have mastered in past lives, is the theory behind that. And so it's you tapping into the Akashic and receiving that. So for me, being born seeing, most of us, if not all of us, are born with the ability to see spirits and entities and things like that, and then it goes away. For me, it went away, and then it was re-triggered when I was in my, I think it was 20 or 21. Yeah, it was either 20 or 21, and it was re-triggered in me, and then it all came back. And so I at that time, I had forgotten that it existed, but all along it was there. I just had forgotten it was there. And years after that, so at that point, I thought that I was kind of like a late bloomer, and I was like, wow, I just couldn't believe that this was happening, because to my understanding, people were born with this. And people don't, unless you had like a severe accident or head trauma, usually you don't have these random gifts show up later in life.
A death experience. Like, I know someone who she actually died and came back.
Right. Yeah. And, I ended up having a near-death experience, but it was after that. It wasn't before that. It didn't trigger that. So for me, it was this whole, like, how is this even possible? How is this happening now? Like, is this all in my head? Am I actually going crazy because these gifts, they don't show up later on in life? Not realizing that I had repressed memories of this all through childhood, and that years later, those memories would be unlocked, and then I remembered that this had always been my truth. So when it comes to you can remember it at any time you want, I think you have to be mentally ready, because I had repressed that. So if you're ready, you can remember it, but you might not have the specific memory like with a past life regression. Yeah, you can do a past life regression, but either you can block it because you're not willing to see what's there when you do past life regression, or, like I said, sometimes you tap into the Akashic and you have these just natural ability to, say, do carpentry. And you're like, I've never picked up power tools before, and somehow I'm really good at this. Mm-hmm. Or I'm able to pick up on this thing really quickly. And people just say, oh, kids these days, they're born with it. You know, the ability to do technology, like they're just born with it. Mm-hmm. But what if they've had lifetimes to master it, and now they're coming into this life with the memories, but not specific memories? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I always, like, there were certain, like, we know a family, like, their child has the incredible gift to ski. Like, they don't really, like, they're a skiing family. But this kid at the age of 3, all of a sudden, was just like, put skis on and was like, by the end of the year, he was doing black diamond. And his family was very athletic, but not to that ability. And it's like, wow. Like, he was born to ski.
Yeah, and any savant, you know, who's to say how many lifetimes they had mastering their skills, mastering being a musician or an artist or a writer. And there's another one, too, but there's actually some musicians, some famous musicians, I can't remember what it's called. It's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to have to look it up, where you can see the music. You see the pattern in the music. And it makes me wonder if there was some sort of way to calculate the percentage of the brain that's being used. I wonder if people who have those abilities and those gifts, if it ties really hand in hand, not only having this remembrance of this mastery that you spent these previous lifetimes accomplishing, but also are you tapping into a higher percentage use of the brain?
Oh, that's good. You'll have to research that.
Maybe that comes with it. Maybe that comes. That's just a natural part of evolution, a natural part of reincarnation. How many lives have you had? And then each time you get, not just say like each lifetime you get to add another 1%, but maybe each mastery you're able to unlock more. Because, I mean, it actually kind of makes sense. As you work out the body, you get stronger. So as you work out the brain, you would have access to a higher capacity.
And that's so interesting. You say, because I think of people who are old souls, you know, like how there are people who are young, like new souls or young souls, and then there are other people. So the people that I feel are old souls are usually more, they're not as active, like they...
Synesthesia is that word, sorry.
Okay.
Where you can see sound.
Okay. And it's, so the people that I think are like old souls, they're very wise. They don't seem to be like very active and busy. I am making a judgment. This is my own viewpoint. You know,
well, old souls tend to have more peace.
Yeah. So for me, that would be like, I don't know. I just think for people who are using their brain a lot or the capacity, it's like they're always on the go. They're always like in full motion. They're not just, but and think about this, like when I am meditating or in the shower, that's where like I have my aha moments. I'm probably using more of my brain capacity than I am when I'm like trying to compose a letter at my, computer and doing texts and, yeah. So we think that
because you're not trying to focus it, you're open.
Yes.
To
it.
experiencing it.
Yeah, very good. That's cool. I was going to ask you, so I was going to, the gifts, so things that we bring maybe to this lifetime. My husband has this amazing ability to pick up language. So he took German and the school he went to, he English. He's an American. But he took German for 12 years. Can't really speak German. It just doesn't, But when we travel, so we went to France, Italy, Greece was a hard one for him. Turkey was another hard one. Mexico was easy. Spain was easy. He picks up the language very quickly. It comes very easy for him. And not only does he understand the language, he has the dialect that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
See, like when people start speaking a foreign language, they don't quite have, it sounds like they're speaking a foreign language.
Right.
So
you're not enunciating the way the natives do.
Exactly. So we have gone to, other countries, and I don't remember if it was in France or Italy. They did not believe that he was American because he didn't have that accent, or he didn't carry that. Me, they knew.
Right.
But yeah, he has. I mean, it's amazing. It drives me kind of. No, it doesn't. I'm very impressed with that he can do that.
Because there's so many different ways that it can happen. There's so many different ways that we can tap into these things, and so many different gifts that manifest in different ways, that on one hand, it can be because somebody is remembering what they already knew from past lives and mastery. But one of the things that my guides actually just brought up for him specifically is that actually it may not be that he's had past lives with all these different places and all these different languages, but that he actually has a particular gift that he can recognize patterns. So if he's really, because I think you said he's good like with mathematics, and like he can write up, like he's really good with words in general, that he can write up these really complex contracts and things like that he actually, his gift may not necessarily be in linguistics so much as it's in patterns, and he's able to recognize the patterns very easily that make it kind of it's almost like a universal language, like mathematics is a universal language that spans across every language and the universe. If you're talking about binary, things like that, to be able to read mathematics and understand the pattern is like a cheat code to all languages.
That makes sense, because math is not my strong suit, so that would be good. I can count some things, but but anything beyond 20, I'm done. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. So that kind of blew my theory of like, are we coming with these gifts, and what would I don't know what my gift would be, like what I came forward with, or what my gifts would be. But I can see them in other people. Yeah.
Well, we all have. I look at the clairs. Have we had a conversation about the clairs before?
No.
As above, so below. The clairs are the spiritual mirror to the physical senses. So we have we call it you have the basic 5 senses, and then you can have your 6th sense. I think the 6th sense actually breaks into 5 other senses that are just on a energetic level rather than a physical level. So we have our sight, we have smell, we have taste, we have touch, and
hearing.
Thank you, hearing. Yes. What are the 5 senses? And then arguably temperature. Sometimes that gets thrown in as separate from touch and things like that. I'm going to pull up the clairs.
How do you spell that? CLARES? Clairs?
CLAIR.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of some of these, if not all of them. So where we have sight with our physical eyes, clairvoyance means clear seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So when this is a vision of the past, present, or future flashes through our mind's eye or our third eye, much like a daydream, many of us are highly visual and able to understand an idea best when we can see it written or sketched out as an image on a computer screen or on a canvas. Visual people often choose to be artists, builders, photographers, decorators, designers, and so forth. If this sounds familiar, clairvoyance is most likely one of your dominant senses.
Hmm.
Then we have clairaudience, which means clear hearing. This is when we hear words, sounds, or music in our own mind's voice. On rare occasions, spirit may be able to create audible sounds through this, though this takes tremendous amount of focused energy. Some of us best retain and comprehend information when we hear it spoken aloud. Our natural talents tend to lie in our auditory facilities, often making us gifted musicians, singers, writers, and public speakers. If this feels right, clairaudience may be your leading sense. There's clairsentience, which is clear feeling. This entails feeling a person or spirit's emotion or feelings from another's physical pain. So you're able to tap into what somebody else is feeling, either emotionally and or physically. Many of us are clairsentient without consciously being aware of it. When we get a strong gut feeling, positive or negative, about someone we just met, or when we get the chills for no apparent reason, we may be turning into an emotional energy of a person or spirit around us. When we're highly sensitive and are in tune with not only our own feelings, but also the feelings of others, this makes us natural healers and caregivers. We often feel inspired to pursue careers as doctors, therapists, counselors, nannies, and teachers. If this is you, clairsentience is at the top of your senses list.
Well, we know what I am. Okay.
So there is clairalience. I'm never sure if I'm saying that correctly, but it's clear smelling. So this is the ability to smell odors that don't have any kind of physical source. Instances of this could be smelling perfume or cigarette smoke of a deceased relative. It's used as a sign of their presence around us. When our senses smell strong and distinct, we may find that certain smells connect us to past memories. We may be drawn to working as a florist, wine taster, or perfume fragrance creator. And clairgustance, if I'm saying that correctly, means clear tasting. This is the ability to taste something that isn't actually there. This experience oftentimes comes from out of the blue when a deceased loved one is attempting to communicate a memory or association we have with a particular food or beverage that reminds us of them. If we have a heightened sense of taste, this would make us natural chefs, bakers, or food critics. And then there is a sixth sense, even in the sixth senses, which is claircognizance, meaning clear knowing. This is when we have knowledge of people or events that we would not normally have knowledge about. Spirit impresses us with truth that simply pops out of our minds from out of nowhere. An example of this would be a premonition, a forewarning of something that will happen in the future. Claircognizance requires tremendous faith because there's often no practical explanation for why we suddenly know something. Many philosophers, professors, doctors, scientists, religious and spiritual leaders, and powerful sales and business leaders tend to be highly intuitive and seem to just know the facts with a sense of certainty. If this is you, consider claircognizance as one of your dominant senses. So for me, it's claircognizance and clairvoyance are my dominant senses. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because when it comes to the physical senses, we have dominant physical senses too.
Yeah.
We all have physical senses that are stronger or weaker than others in comparison. So it makes sense that on the clairs side, we have dominant clairs, where we have all of the clairs. Well, most of us, like you can be blind, you can have, like, be missing a clair. You can be deaf, so you can be missing a clair. You know, things can happen that can, it can be any combination, just like with our physical bodies. But by and large, where we all, on average, have the 5 or 6 physical senses, you can have 5 or 6 energetic senses of the clairs, and you just have some that are more dominant than others.
Totally, yes. And it makes sense. I mean, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly, it's energetic. And when we understand energy, which we're starting to better than we ever have before, you go back to what Nikola Tesla said. You want to know the secrets of the universe, understand it in the form of energy. And I'm totally messing up that quote. But that's basically what he was saying. It's all about energy and the flow of energy. So it has been this, the clairs have been this like mystical, magical theory, concept, largely associated with witchcraft and things like that.
Right.
When in reality, when we finally get to the point where we understand fully energy and the effect that it has with everything, it will be kind of like, well, duh, it's not mystical at all. It's just another part of science.
So and I'm totally like sidetracking over here, so we can detour back. Why do you think, I'm asking, we have allowed, universe has allowed, do you know where I'm going? You're smiling. So.
No, I'm laughing because you didn't even get into it yet, but you're like, and I'm just saying.
Yeah. Why, we allow narrow-mindedness to be our governing leaders or be in control. So whenever you look back in history, anyone who had a sense of, witchcraft or the mystics or magical and I'm putting all these labels on, they are evil, crazy, then all this the negative labels are then put onto them, and we push them as a society, we push them to the side. And yet, so I feel like we keep getting these, like, society, humans keep getting these tests, and we keep screwing it up. Like, I know.
Screwing it up.
Okay, good. That makes me happy because I just, I keep feeling like we're on the chutes and ladders game. We're not getting too far. But, I mean, when you look at history, you can go back any culture, and they have, like, in the United States, it was the witches, or even Native Americans had this immense sense to, it wasn't just the natural world. Like they had an entire other world that they lived
to the spiritual realm and the cosmos.
Yeah, and I mean, and yet that was bad. I mean, even in the I'm going to say the 50s. No. Maybe it was. I don't want to say the 50s because I don't want to think it was that recent. I'm going to say the 20s. In Maine, they would remove Native American children from their homes and put them into nice...
That actually happened as recently as the 70s, the 60s and 70s.
See,
sure.
Yeah.
I had a teacher in high school. He was a photography teacher, and he told our class, I can't remember if it was in the 60s or the 70s. I want to say the 70s because I don't think he was that old. And he told us about when his, I'm going to say tribe, and I think he used the word tribe, but it was kind of like the remnants of many tribes that had come together.
Yeah.
And the state came in and no longer recognized this group and took the children from the parents and put them into Catholic schools.
Yeah.
And he was completely abused all growing up in these Catholic schools. And, not to say all Catholic schools are abusive, of course, but his experience, that's what he experienced. And everybody he knew was taken from their families, and he saw people as a child get shot as they tried to fight the local government when they came in and took these children from their homes.
Yeah.
Big, nobody believed it happened. And that was one of his things why, he was a teacher, and he kind of maybe shouldn't have used that platform, but we didn't mind, He was speaking his truth, and there is in no history book. Nobody even knew that happened.
Right. Yeah. So So we've allowed the, and again, we, society, I want to say the narrow-mindedness to be in control.
Well, that's what this is all supposed to be doing, shaking all that up. But gently. Not
okay, I don't think I'm patient.
You want to be patient.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if somebody were to experience an awakening and they're not ready for it, you can go mad. If you just think of identity dissociative disorder, which is multiple personalities. That is when the psyche literally splits into different facets of your personality. You're still one person, still one vessel, but multiple personalities and ideas and backstories within the one single vessel. Now, I have a lot of really amazing things that I have learned about that. However, that's at least a physical example of what can happen to the psyche when we experience high trauma. If somebody experiences awakening and they're not ready for it, the level of distress that happens to their being will not be beneficial for them and would send us into a way more chaotic energy than we currently live in. Here's a great example of waking up in shock.
Okay.
The difference between waking up in the morning with the sun shining in on you and birds chirping and you laying in bed and stretching and yawning and you had a great night's sleep and you're like, okay, I'm waking up, I'm ready for the day. And maybe the day is great or maybe the day turns to shit. It doesn't really matter because things are always going to happen and life is going to happen and it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. But there's this waking up process that's really gentle and you come into your day that way. Or you could be exhausted, only got 2 hours of sleep, and you finally go into a deep REM sleep and your alarm goes off and it scares you and you jolt out of bed and your heart is racing and you feel like you just had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like, either way you wake up, but one is much easier than the other. And one is going to set your day up for success. Even if the day still goes to shit, it'll set you up better for success than the other one. You're going to start out feeling exhausted. You're going to start out feeling defeated. You're going to start out with this idea that you're going to create pretty much and manifest a shitty day.
As a teacher, you never present the entire lesson up front. You give it in doses. And depending on the class you have in front of you and what level they are, is how fast and how much you give them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay.
You wouldn't want this mass awakening. It's called a mass awakening, but this mass awakening is going to happen over a period of years. And some people call it an event and some people call it like a progression. It's both. Because if you look at how old the universe is, even if it's 700 years, that is an event in the grand scheme of the timeline of the universe. That is like that. When you're talking about eternity, it's an event. But when you're living in it and you're experiencing second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, it's a progression.
And not only are you doing this in your own timeline, but you're now interacting with, you're surrounded by people who are on their projection as well.
Right.
So
and
they may not,
it's all synchronistic, because where this person is, not that anyone's better or worse off than anybody else or higher or lower, but say if they're still at this level of awareness and you're at this level of awareness, you might need them to be in this level of awareness so that they can create a opportunity for you to have an obstacle that makes you forced to overcome that obstacle, or they would not have been that obstacle had they been at your state of awareness, because there would have been too much love and compassion in their heart to assist you to create this opportunity for you to grow. So for us to be, it's so synchronistic and so perfect. Everybody plays their role perfectly,
right?
Honestly. And I've had actually, I don't mean to like go into this level of it per se, but I've done a video about how do you have free will and purpose? Like, how do they marry each other? Because if we're all performing our parts perfectly, well, then the argument is, does free will actually exist? And yeah, you can choose to not participate. And what will happen is that somebody who's willing will then come in instead, and they'll fill in the gap. So you can still create the life that you want, and you can choose to not participate in something or to go this direction or this direction. And like the universe has, we're special, but you know, there's people who are ready to step in.
Right. So the lessons are there. Like we have our, like if that teacher is not available, if you're choosing not to attend that, then there's the next one's available.
And that's where free will marries with purpose.
Yeah.
And like you said, on the Sanskrit instructions for a living, or whatever it's called, you learn the lesson, you continue to learn the lesson until the lesson's learned. So if by your free will you choose a different path in this life, or even within the same life, you'll have, that's why people end up in the same kind of relationships over and over and over again.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just had a client yesterday who was like, I don't understand why I keep, attaching to the same type of person, but yet they're not. I mean, I keep falling for the same same type of person. And well, apparently you have learned your lesson.
Yeah, their background might be different. Their skin color might be different. Their gender might even be different.
Right. But the triggers are still there. I mean,
because you're learning this lesson over and over and over again. And that's also where, guess what? There was another willing participant who wanted to experience that side of the spectrum. And so you ended that relationship. And so you learned, but then you didn't actually really learn. And so your free will, you chose to continue, whether you are conscious of it or not, you chose to not learn or to do this path because it feels more familiar and it's less scary than putting yourself out there for this or healing yourself. So then you have this other person who steps in, and then you have that experience over and over again.
I'm writing down so I don't forget. So while you're saying this, I truly believe that there are people who we intersect with just for like, it could be on a plane ride. You know, you sit next to someone and you have this most amazing, like you connect with them instantly. You have the most amazing conversation. And I don't talk to people on planes. I get on the plane, I put on my headset, I'm like, so that's happened to me. And then they're gone. But I still remember like the impact from that conversation, or the impact from, it might have been a 20-minute conversation, but it was so amazing, like whatever the connection was, it was impactful. And then I have people in my life that I'm with like my entire life. And there were some people I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, they're just there. And then I have other people that I totally believe that my husband and I, it wasn't just, like I just knew I know we were born to be together, without sounding sappy and a Hallmark romance, movie. But, I just knew it. So it's, And then also, like, those are two positives. There's also the negative, where you have an impact. I always, like the person, like when you have a car accident, it changes your entire life. Or you're with someone your entire life and it's just really bad the whole time. I mean, yeah.
And there's lessons in all of that. And it's hard to see the positive in the negative when you're in victim mode. And to say, well...
Yeah, or survival mode, too. Yeah.
Right. Say, I was in this car accident. It's caused me chronic pain for the last 20 years. How can you say that any good came of this? Well, you don't know that what life would have happened if you weren't in this car accident. If your body was fully healed, you may have chose to go on a hiking trip and got mauled by a bear. But now your body can't handle hiking, so you never went on that trip that would have taken your life. Or you never did this thing that would have devastated another person. Like, how many times have we had divine intervention and we have no clue about it?
Yeah, totally. I'm reminded every time I'm behind someone who's driving incredibly slow. So I live in the country, and they're just windy little roads. You can't pass for the most part. And you're behind someone who is going so slow. And you're just like, you don't want to complain, or you want to, but yet maybe that person was maybe you connected for a reason. Maybe you're behind that person because if you were 5 minutes faster or a few minutes faster, something could have happened, or you weren't supposed to be 5 minutes faster.
Exactly. And it's all synchronistic, and it goes beyond that too, because it's so complex. The way that everything is so complex, because not only is it keeping you from potentially getting in an accident down the road because you were just slow enough to miss whatever could have occurred, but also it's giving you an opportunity for patience. And maybe you needed a lesson in patience that was going to prepare you for something that's going to happen 10 years from now. And you have these baby step lessons with patience that snowball effects build upon each other. But just like your lesson plan, you only give so much at a time. Maybe you just needed a 10-second exercise in patience, and then the next time you need a 1-minute exercise in patience. And these continue to build to where in 10 years, something is going to happen that you'll have needed that experience. And you have no idea that person played a role in it. No clue. When you put it together, who's to say one moment in time? But it's so synchronistic that I don't believe that it's just one thing ever. It's always multi-purpose.
I know, which makes you think, like, sometimes, well, why, would it just be easier to just, stay in bed all day and not do anything? But it'd be so boring.
Yeah. It would.
Yeah.
It would be easier, but how happy would you be? I mean, we are how we are for a reason. We have drive. We always have drive to do something, even if it's just to entertain ourselves and be on our phone. You will be hard-pressed to find a single person that has no drive to do anything, regardless of how much easier it would be.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to play that game of what if. I know some people say, like, don't play the game. And in certain situations, it doesn't serve us. But
well, we play it all. My husband and I play it all the time. All the time. What if Rosa Parks never sat down? What if, it's things like that. What if Oprah stayed in Baltimore and never, as an anchor? I think it was Baltimore, Maryland. It was like things like that. What if I had not listened to that little voice in my head that said, he's the one?
Some of those things, like what if Rosa Parks never sat down? There would have been somebody else.
So there would have been someone else, right? Yeah.
Maybe at another time. Maybe we would have thrown the timeline off a little bit. But when things are meant to happen, they're going to happen. Yeah. The timeline might just change slightly.
Right. And I totally believe that. I mean, just using my husband and I as I totally, like, when I first met him, I was 12, he was 13. And I did not like him. He was, I just didn't like him. And I really did not like his brother. So that was just like, nope. But then as we move forward, I think I was like 16, he was 17. I walked into a room, and I remember exactly. I remember talking about using all your senses. I remember the smells, the sounds. I remember what he was wearing. I remember the temperature of how I felt, the entire thing. I was with my friend. I walked into a room. He was standing there talking, and something just like hit me or flashed through me that said, "You will marry him." And my reaction to that, like it would have been like someone had told me, but it was in my head. My reaction was an actual physical one in the moment, and I was like, "Whoa!" And my friend was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Nope, not go, no." Then fast forward 2 more years, and we ended up being on a youth, like we were youth group leaders, and we were forced to be on the same team. And we just started talking, and we're like, oh, okay, he's not that bad. But we never really connected, like 100%. Like we weren't like boyfriend, girlfriend, like that. And then he lived in New York City. I went to college in Boston, and every guy I dated, I compared to him. Everyone. Even though he still drove me crazy. And then eventually we hooked up. And I've been hooked since.
Wow.
30-some years. But it was, so it was like that, like even though, and maybe it's a very romantic thing. Like maybe there's someone else out there it didn't matter. It didn't matter who I'm with. I'm getting the same lessons, whether it was him or not. And it's not all like roses and lovey-dovey and all that. We have real life issues, and, I probably hate him as much as I love him, and the triggers he pulls out for me, and then how he deals with things drives me crazy. But it's good. So do you think, I'm kind of shifting here, do you think we pick our parents?
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
Yeah, I do too. 100%. I do. I think we pick our families. I think the situation in which they're in. Yeah. When my kids were little and they would yell at me, I would punish them or something. And I hate you. Well, you picked me, so.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
And
my kids were really, yeah. My kids were like, so.
Yeah, sorry, you chose me.
Chose me.
I chose you too. We agreed on this.
Yeah. So to sum up, like to go back to the remembering and not remembering, do you think we don't come here remembering everything to not overload us?
Partially, but you wouldn't experience what you experienced authentically. I have come to terms with that. Although there were times that I used to beat myself up for not being able to be present in, say, for example, the moment of an anxiety attack, mm-hmm. or of terror. I'm terrified of flying. So I experience actual terror for the entire duration of the flight until we start to land. Those times, if you don't buy into it, mm-hmm. you can't experience it authentically. So if I know mm-hmm. that, even though I know, and that's where I kind of beat myself up, or I used to beat myself up about being in those moments, like I know the truth is that I won't die. I know that I am eternal. The body still has physical responses to that, which mm-hmm. back up, the ego response, that program that's in me, and make me second guess, like, oh, well, I do know that this could be painful if this
right.
were to happen, or whatever the situation is. If we come in with full remembrance, I do think that some people do, because I think that some people everybody comes here for a different reason. If you come here to experience and to grow, remembering isn't going to serve you.
Right.
If you come here to serve the population, you need to come in with the remembrance. Does that make sense? If you come, so like Jesus came to be a light to the people and help
Mm-hmm.
them remember who they are and remember their connection to source.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to know who he was to come in
Mm-hmm.
and do that. And there's been many that are like him that have come in to assist the population and to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think, honestly, there are some people who come here on vacation. And those are the people who are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They actually have a healthy family. You know, they have a happy life. Things just tend to go their way. They're naturally liked. They're physically attractive. You know, sometimes can it be okay that maybe that person had a horrific life before and this is their vacation?
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to kind of challenge you. I don't think anyone has a smooth ride completely. Like I don't know one person who has. I mean, financially, sure. Okay, I know people who do not worry about money. They haven't had to worry about money. They have a trust fund. They, you know, whatever. That's easy. But they're carrying triggers with them. You know, they have been through this life. They've taken on triggers.
Have you met somebody who has Down syndrome?
Oh yeah, lots. Yeah.
They may experience traumas, but it has no hold on them, and they're just genuinely the most happy people.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay,
it just might not look like what we think it looks like.
Right. Or they are right. Exactly. I mean, and some have physical. It kind of goes hand in hand. There are some physical challenges that they are struggling with as well. Yeah, you're right. Never thought of it that. And I loved my Down.
From the outside looking in, because in order to keep up your perception of the world and your perception of your narrative, you would see everybody goes through something. But of everybody that's ever lived and everybody that ever will live, can you honestly say that there's not one single person who has not had a perfect life? I think that they're probably few and far between, but if you choose to experience that, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
I choose to come and play in 3D and just not be affected. I just want to experience that. Just once, I want to experience a life where everything goes right. Why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And things would still happen, but they would have no hold on you. So therefore, from the outside looking in, yes, you could say you've gone through trials and tribulations, but internally, as far as the spirit goes, you still hold peace.
Okay. I get it. Okay. Well, then in that aspect, I think we all are. I mean, because we all kind of come here knowing, okay, we're in this game, and in the end, it's all okay, regardless. You know, so how we choose to, and then, so, and I believe there are people who come knowing, okay, I'm going to come and shake things up a little.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah. And it's just trusting it's all going to be okay in the end.
And there are, karmic things that can happen. Karma, for me, has, again, just like everything else, it's what you believe it is what it is. Yeah. Because karma can have a hold on you, or karma can not have a hold on you. Mm-hmm. Karma can be your family karmic line, or it can be past actions. Like, it can be all of it, or it can be none of it. And whatever you believe is what you participate in. But there is a belief system where if you come here, you could get involved with something karmic, which can keep you here. So say, for example, those who come knowing that they're going to be the ones shaking things up in a more negative way, but it's ultimately going to benefit the world, and it's going to be a catalyst that's going to shift people forward. When people are united against the same enemy, it's one of the fastest ways to unite the population and to synchronize everybody's heart on the same level. So for that person or group to come in as the negative catalyst, they understand that they could potentially, and this is just this belief system, they could get stuck here. You would look at your own life and you would have this understanding, and you'd be so full of compassion where you're standing in the truth, and you would say, oh my gosh, like I hurt these people, I need to make it right. It's not that you're forced to make it right, but you have this strong desire and so much love that you want to make it right, that you come back and you cycle in again and again and again until you go through all of these lifetimes where you've made amends for all of these things. That is one belief system. It's not that it's required, but that belief system says that you could get stuck in a cycle. So even in that particular belief system, for those who come here on vacation, they run a risk of entering into this karmic cycle as well, interacting with a certain person or group, having a negative effect. It could just be as simple as them just living their life, and somebody is triggered by them because they have the life that they want. And so now my feelings are hurt because of you from my projections onto you. And then at the end of that person's life review, they're like, oh my gosh, this person was hurting so bad. Just because I existed in their life, I need to make this up to them. Not to say that that's how it goes, but it's a potential. And if there's an unlimited number, if there's an infinity number of infinities, I'm sure that it happens somewhere.
Yeah.
Even
but if that's the case, then you are carrying a memory then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, yes. So even though you don't remember it, it is there.
We can't not subscribe to a belief system. You just really can't function on Earth without subscribing to a handful of belief systems.
Yeah.
But to the best of your ability, the most freedom comes and the most opportunities for growth come when you don't subscribe to certain belief systems. Because once you subscribe to a belief system, you're held to the limitations of that belief system.
Right. It narrows your 100%. And I think, just look at religions of, and I have nothing against religion. But you are born into a religious belief, you stay in that. And if you don't shift out of the lane to explore something wider, then that's all you know.
Right.
Yeah. So, you either...
And obviously they're very potent, or they wouldn't be such a trigger for people. Where they say two things you don't talk about is religion and politics. If it wasn't such a dense belief system that so many people participated in, it would have no power. But it has an immense amount of power. So it's a very strong belief system. No matter what religion it is, they all are very powerful because of the collective, not need, but belief in the need.
Yeah.
Them, if that makes sense.
No, yeah. And I think, 100%. And I don't think I think they were all like a language, a belief system. It's what we, I want to say drop into, but that's what it is. It's how we drop into it and feel comfortable with, I guess.
I was raised in the Christian faith. I went to a private Christian school for years. Yeah. So that is the group that I am most familiar with, even though I don't necessarily identify with them. I don't have the knowledge of Islam or Judaism or other branches of Christianity, Catholicism and Mormonism. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but all of those other branches, even within Christianity, I can't even necessarily speak to them, but I can only speak to what I know. Right. And so I constantly am going back, and I'll quote things from the Bible, even though I don't fully believe everything in the Bible is exactly what it says, and you have groups in Christianity who think it's exactly everything word for word, and you have groups in Christianity who think that it's inspired, and you have groups in Christianity who think that there's a lot of symbolism, and I think that's kind of the collective agreement that there's a lot of symbolism. But I will say, and I will quote some of the Bible, because depending on who I'm speaking to, that would be what resonates best with them. And so that's the terminology that I use.
Right.
That's what I have access to try to communicate. Be like, well, it's this, like this, and this, this passage is going to make you feel comfortable with the information I'm talking about because this is what you subscribe to. Or it could have the exact opposite approach and really piss some people off because I'm taking it out of context, or you know, trashing whatever people are going to project onto it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But you have allowed yourself to step outside of the lane. The lane, like you've allowed yourself to, you were in this.
And that was terrifying.
You were terrified?
Yeah, it was terrifying. Because the way, the version of Christianity I was raised with was more fundamentalist. And it was this, you were not encouraged to ask questions. You were not encouraged. Like, yeah, you were within the parameters of what was safe. They tried to say that it was okay to ask questions, but in reality, it was not okay to ask questions. And it was really the question that was responded back to you is like, what if you're wrong? Is it worth questioning Christianity? Because what's it going to cost you if you're wrong? It's going to cost you your soul for eternity. We can't even understand the concept of eternity, burning for eternity and damnation. Is it worth it? And for a long time, I was too afraid to say, yes, it's worth it. And I just reached a point where there was so much mental anguish, and I felt like it was such a tug of war, because part of me that I was being told I was possessed by a demon because of these other gifts of speaking and channeling and all that. I knew that was from God. I knew that was a connection with Source. I knew it wasn't, I wasn't possessed. I just knew it. Yeah. I would go back and forth between questioning, but there was so much mental anguish because I felt like I couldn't be me and be a Christian. And Christianity is so broad. It's hard to even say, does Christianity even exist? Because it's so broad and there are so many facets of it. And there are some Christians that are like, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. You can be who you are and you can have these gifts, and we call those gifts of the Spirit. And then you have the type that I grew up with that says, no, you're possessed by a demon. God would never do that or whatever. And so it felt way more freeing to walk away from it. But it was terrifying because I had to come to that conclusion. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth my soul burning in hell forever if I was wrong?
Do you think it's all very fear-based? Like a lot of the religions are very fear-based. Like if you don't do this, this is going to happen. Or, and again, it goes back to, we're allowing the narrow-minded to control the greater population. Yeah.
And for that, I know you had said that and we got way off base.
Yeah.
For that is a very multi-layered question and explanation. The easiest thing that I can say is to go back to the Law of One. Yeah. And it talks about the evolution of consciousness. And where Earth used to be in 5D, and then you had these people who were participating in 4D, and they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. And it didn't start out malicious. because it was like, oh, well, I can do this thing. Like, this is a new experience I've never experienced before. You had obviously a large group that was interested in participating in that and playing in it. And then you go down, 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 and then eventually, you're playing in 3D. And then 3D is so dark and dense that you can kind of get lost, and that's really where that veil of forgetfulness comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so thick, it's like everybody's walking through a fog. That's what kind of ruled for a while. And then now we're climbing back out of it and anchoring into the 4th density and moving up into the 5th density, which is what's going to take a couple hundred to 1,000 years, potentially. But it's got to be gentle.
Yeah. I'm not a patient person, I guess. I just need this to happen. Yeah.
And that's a very, very simplified, oversimplified explanation of why the narrow-mindedness rules, why does fear rule. The easiest thing to say is it's starting to not.
I think in many ways it's looking back in our history from what we know of human existence. I think it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But
I agree.
Yeah.
I think of it too, if you think of a bucket of sand with rocks and pebbles in it, and you're shaking it, and all of the heavier rocks are moving to the top.
Yeah.
You can take your time and you can dig through it and you can try to find it, but it's so much more efficient to shake it and have them all rise to the top.
Yeah.
What if you're just looking at the top after it's been shaken, it looks like a bucket full of big rocks. Mm-hmm. When really they're just at the surface, because what was buried, what was hidden is now revealed. So on the outside looking in, when you're experiencing it, it's easy to say, well, the world's going to hell and everything is terrible, and it, like, the dark side or evil is clearly winning. It's because it's all up to the top now. Everything that was hidden, where you have this rose-colored glasses about the past, you're like, oh, well, times were so much better then. The earth was so much better then. We did so much better then. We loved each other so much more then. No, it was just hidden. You just didn't see it. It was like we were just talking about with my teacher who, in the 60s or 70s, when he was taken from his family and his whole, all of the kids in his tribe were taken from their families, nobody knew that existed. That stuff's coming to the surface now. Those are stories that are being revealed. It was always there. Mm-hmm. You just didn't know about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was something that I knew. So I grew up in the 70s, and I mean, I knew that I knew it had happened. Yep. There's a lot,
There's a lot of people who, up until this year, didn't think that human trafficking was still a thing. Many people already knew it, but there were many people that didn't know it. And now the conversation of human trafficking is so dense. Yeah. Some people still don't believe it. There's still people who don't believe it, and they think that it's a hoax, or they think that it's politically related or whatever. And there are those who are using it to their advantage and who are twisting it, and but by and large, it's always been there. It's just our awareness of it has changed, and so it looks like it's all in our face, like it's this new thing that's happening when it's just the surface. And there's still going to be those that say it's not real.
Yeah, just change the terminology. It's always been there. Mm-hmm. Like women had in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s were removed and taken to Central America and South America as sex slaves. There's, stolen from there or traded for money. So tribes would trade, other women. It was happening. Okay, let's talk about something really quick to end on a positive up, because that's good down on remembering. Do we remember or not?
So how do we remember?
Well,
how can you remember if you want?
Are you asking me, or are you like, is this a quiz? Let me go back and take my notes. No. It's interesting for me, a lot of memories from this lifetime come from my senses. Like a sound, a smell. But then there are things that I remember, like, that I have no reason to know. Like, I don't know how that happens. Like, 'cause sometimes I've been, like, one time Dan and I were hiking, and I knew we were going to come to a foundation, like where it was a granite foundation, like where it used to be a house, like 100 years ago. As we're walking, I'm like, and I'm telling Dan, I think there's a foundation up ahead. And there was. I don't know how, there's no way I'd never hiked that, So I think, and there were times that, like, I've been places, like, on that hike, and like, I could hear the birds, and it's like, oh, I remember, there was something that was, like, familiar to it, but I couldn't remember it. Mm-hmm. And so maybe like, you get these little moments of, like, oh, okay, yeah, from our senses, from our...
And that's your claircognizance, that knowing, clear knowing. Mm-hmm. You just know, and you don't know how you know.
Yeah.
No, and I think that is a version of remembering.
Yeah.
And the other thing, here's some scripture for you from the Christian Bible. Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. If anybody wants to know and you ask enough, you will find the answers. I have yet to ever, it might take years, but personally, I have yet to ever not find something I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I might find that the answer is that they don't know the answer. I might find that the end of the answer is that it's partially known right now because of scientific discoveries. We're limited with where we're at. But I'll find an answer.
But how do you know it's the answer? Like,
it's the answer that I can have right now.
Okay, yeah.
And knowing that more truth will come as there's more experience and more understanding.
Right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think the answer is a continuation. I don't think there's never,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just, As
you want to remember, that's one of the things that I hate when my guides, which my guides don't do this anymore, but when you get these cryptic answers that say, you already have it within you. You already know what the answer is.
Yeah, yeah.
My follow-up is 100% help me remember what I already know. And then I will get a much clearer answer. I will not accept these frou-frou bullshit answers.
Well, I have a teacher who you very well know, and that's his response to me when I ask questions. You already know the answer. I'm like, well, just tell me the answer.
Said, help me remember.
Well, I'll say, just tell me. But I'm going to say, okay, help. I'm going to put that on a sticky.
Get there.
No, I'm going to put that on a sticky and write it. Help me remember.
Now, when you tell him, just tell me, eventually, if you keep pressing, does he just tell you?
I don't know, because I don't keep pressing.
Oh, well.
I should.
If you ask earnestly enough, if you seek earnestly enough, you will get the answers. Yeah. I think I just get annoyed. Like, I don't want to play a game. Just tell me. I don't care. If I'm asking, it means I don't know. I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, just tell me how pretty I am again. I was like, yeah. And it's okay to be like, this is why you communicate more and you keep going until you're satisfied. And even if you're talking with this person and you can say, this is what I need right now. I need this reassurance. Yes, I think I have an idea. This is what I think it is.
Okay.
Is that close, or can you give me reassurance because I'm needing more? and just really communicate and be more vulnerable.
Well, that's it. I won't be vulnerable.
It's a pride thing. You're annoying me and you're pissing me off, and I just want you to tell me the thing.
Yes, right, exactly. Do not make me beg for this, because I will not. I will go out and yell at my trees instead of you. Yeah. So that's a learning.
How badly do you want the answer?
Yeah, or how badly do I
keep asking until I'm satisfied.
Or how badly do you want to learn the lesson at that moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I really wanted the lesson to be over with, I would ask rather than give up. So I'm willing to carry this lesson on a little longer.
And there are many times where I'll ask a question that I don't really want to know an answer to, and I'll just leave it because I'm not ready for the answer, and I'm scared of what the answer is going to be. Even though I know it's probably going to be good, I'm still afraid of what that's going to mean, because even something good generally means me taking more responsibility for my life and my actions, and that can be scary.
Yeah. Whew. All right.
How you feeling?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
How do you okay. This was good. How did you like it?
I liked it.
You'll have to weave it together and make it all pretty and,
Yeah, I'm hoping that it recorded well, and either
I know we keep having these conversations.
Either way, it's divine. Whether it's just meant for the two of us or if it's meant to share.
Right. So you go away the 8th, right? When is that? Like in 4 days?
That's next Tuesday.
Okay.
Coming Tuesday, yeah.
And okay. And will you be back? I know. I'm like, I have it marked on my calendar. Do you have a comfort food you're taking with you?
I thought about fasting, and then I was like, no, let me not do that.
You're going hardcore. No, you're not going. I'm such a foodie. Like, foodie for me is, I will like plan and prep and prepare. Like, if I know I'm entering into a situation that's going to be emotionally or spiritually challenging, I will like make sure I have the food that will support that. Because I'm such an emotional eater. Like, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
me too.
Have a good time on the 8th. Let me know when you get back how it all goes. Send me a text.